Hi, my name is Kim Berry, Director of Marketing at Sweet Adelines International. As we continue our journey to travel in tune, I'm pleased to welcome Sweet Adelines from around the world as we travel to Sweet Adelines, New Zealand, Region 35. We only have a few regions left, so be sure to follow along via the Travel in Tune website or the mobile app. So sit back and enjoy as Region 35 takes us on a tour of their choruses, learn all about how Broadway and Barbershop are intertwined from Christchurch City Chorus coach Richard Marrett, and relive exciting past performances from Roxy Quartet and Waikato Rivertones Chorus. We hope you enjoy From Barbershop to Broadway with Region 35.
Well, good morning, everyone. Well, you know, probably belong to me, Humphrey-Taylor, Master Director 700 of Christchurch City Chorus, and I'm extremely pleased to be able to introduce you to Richard Marrett, our chorus coach, who we've had for over a year now, and ever since COVID lockdown. He's well known throughout the music industry of New Zealand as musical director for the Court Theatre, for the Isaac Theatre Royal Shows. Has been a tutor at ARA and still does teach at National Academy. And he's had a huge variety of responsibilities throughout his life. He unpacks shows when they hit New Zealand before they go on tour. So the current one is Jersey Boys that's going everywhere, so Richard would have unpacked that. We performed it here in Christchurch and then it travels around the country. So he's well equipped to be teaching us on how to perform and how to sing at a high level. So we're very thrilled to have found him in Christchurch, and he's available. For a fee. You have to pay our chorus to get him to your chorus. He's a music arranger as well, so he worked on the work that put all of our melody together and put the piano pieces in between songs for us, so it's wonderful. Now, Broadway theatre is about, it refers to something simple. It's just Broadway. Theatre shows that are commonly performed in the theatre district, known as Broadway in Manhattan, and the West End district of London as well. Broadway shows usually feature leading ladies, leading men, a dance troupe, and an orchestra or a band. It's as simple as that. Show music style contains ballads, which are usually love songs, charm songs, where a character beguiles an audience, such as Wouldn't It Be Lovely and comedy numbers, often highly energetic downbeat as opposed to swing songs such as Get Me to the Church on Time. Barbershop vocal harmony, on the other hand, is a style of a cappella, close harmony, or unaccompanied vocal music, characterised by a continuous four-part chord delivery, and it's delivered by four or more voices. All of our ensembles work diligently to produce a sound that creates instant lock and ring. Music is arranged to enhance this lock and ring, and we choose a high percentage of chords that lend themselves to supporting the overtone production in our voices. Without accompanying instruments, rhythms, tempos, and specialist interpretive stylistic vocal effects must be learned thoroughly and then presented consistently for all of the vertical chords to be synchronized. The best musicals and barbershop performances share three essential qualities: brains, intelligence and style; heart, genuine and believable emotion; courage, the guts to do something creative and exciting. As we know, there are many vocal styles used across Western music, from opera to jazz to pop, barbershop, and to more avant-garde vocals employed by soloists and ensembles. And recently I was teaching someone who gave me a demonstration of Ryan said, "You're going to hurt yourself." There are a certain set of vocal styles that are particularly suited to Broadway show music, just as there are in barbershop. Ballads are suited to a warm, rich sound, whereas the fun, upbeat music often requires Broadway belting to get the sound across the footlights and out the back of the hall. Skilled singers can use all sorts of tones, just like you, from brightly brassy to trombonishly mellow, warm to icy, metallic to spongy. Our singing and speaking voices are our own unique combination of body cavity structures and sizes, with constant training, consistent practice of correct vocal production methods, our own personal rehearsal, and knowing what is required and when, the human voice can create magical sounds to suit every song, every nuance on call. So we're going to actually move on now to the different sounds that we hear when we're singing. So when you're looking at music, sopranos, tenors, and leads have adjectives that describe their voices and textures. Shimmering, shining, gleaming, bell-like, yellow, white, silvery, metallic, crystalline, silky, and creamy. Who do you think they might play? First example.
Inside of you, way down deep inside of you, Ellen. Whenever you want to sing, you need only remember just one thing. Remember to breathe from your hoo-hoo. Feel from within your hoo-ha. For it's there in the woo of the woo that your dum-diddy-dum will find its fa-la-la-la. If you're a boxer, you pull from your if you're a comedian, you speak from your if you're a gymnast, you spring from your boing. If you're Stephen King, you write from your so remember.
So there are our tenor, that's our tenor example. Then of course we have mezzo-sopranos, leads and baritones, and the adjectives and colours that describe their voices are and tastes are things like musky, glowing, fiery, golden, burgundy, copper, smooth, velvety, chocolatey. So who might they be? Judy Garland? So that's still in Tenderland. But what a voice! And she went through all the colours, you notice? Her swab was fantastic. And so we're moving on now to the lead and baritone style, and we're showing a little bit of the buzz.
Just moved in to 14G, so cozy, calm, and peaceful. Heaven for a mouse like me, with quiet by the leaseful. Pets are banned, parties too, and no solicitations. A window seat with garden view, a perfect nook to read a book. I'm lost in my Jane Austen when I hear whoa, say it isn't so, not the flat below.
So you're seeing that all of these quartets could be on Broadway, or at the West End as well? Yeah, you can see that there's a direct parallel. That's perfectly. So then we get to the contraltos and basses, and the adjectives used for those voices generally are heavy, strong, bronze, purple, smoky, even husky, rich and chocolatey. And I just have to tell you what, the people who sing low usually get these parts in Broadway musicals. Their mothers, grandmothers, earth goddesses, witches, nuns or priestesses, and since I'm a bass, I thought I'd let you all know that we really end up weird parts rather than the lumpy ones. We're fun, that's the thing. So famous people who sing in that range, Ella Fitzgerald and Annie Lennox, and Susan Kegley, an a cappella girl. So listen for the bass voice.
I don't get it, you know? Who's that waddling down the street? It's just me, 'cause I love to eat fudge, Twinkies and deviled ham. Who's real flabby? Yes, I am. Every picture of me's gotta be an aerial view. Now my doctor tells me there's just one thing left to do. Going on a grapefruit diet. Throw out the pizza and beer. Grapefruit diet. Or get those jelly donuts out of here. Going on a grapefruit diet. Might seem a little severe. Grapefruit diet. I'm getting tired of my big fat rear. Oh.
Good song. Tony and I had often thought of singing that. But she wouldn't be able to get away with it anymore. That'll be fun. Then, of course, we've got renowned Broadway belters, and there's like Adina Menzel and Bette Midler. So you might be asking what kind of singer is a belter. Belting can only be achieved actually by extremely high-trained singers who work diligently on the intricacies of how to belt without causing vocal damage. It's well known that you can do a lot of damage to the vocal folds by belting incorrectly. Barbershoppers prefer to mix head voice down into middle range and then into the chest register to ensure seamless transitions are delivered with ease. The fact is, the belt is a kind of vocal trick or stylistic choice, and a belter is someone who uses this type of singing to their advantage. It's a complicated but exciting technique in which singers push the heavier chest register up out of its natural range. Any vocal category can produce belt, but the most familiar belter is the mezzo-soprano, who's often showcased in Broadway musicals. So in Wicked, Elphaba was a really good example of a belter. Ellen Legally Blonde is also a good belter. Famous examples of belting voices are Ethel Merman, for those who are old enough to remember her, Adina Menzel in Wicked, and Sutton Foster. And a really good example that we found too is Gina Baker in Viva, the current international quartet, who get to do it for a few years.
How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? If I ever lost you, how much would I cry? How deep is the ocean? How high? The sky.
Many of us were privileged to go to a class where she was the lead in Touche, and she taught us how to sing a note for a long time. Come and see me afterwards if you'd like to know. So we're going to investigate a few of these resonation chambers. There are many things that come into play, like the use of the larynx and that sort of thing, and we don't have time for that today. So we thought what we'd like to do is to take a look at your human body, and we'd like you to be upstanding for a moment. We're going to do a few things together. So if you could touch your nose, please, and make a noise game. And if you can get up that high, it'd be good. That's singing the same octave. Good. That's called the front of house hard spike position. So you should feel the sound coming out across your teeth. So if you if you have a clean finger, if you can feel your teeth or just behind the teeth and put an E sound there, we'll go and try to make it nasty rather than nice. Some of you are actually taking it a wee bit back, so right up on the teeth. And that's the front door. So if you could imagine your head being a house, and so you could knock on my nose. So this is the front door of the house, and so we're singing right up here in the front. And so sometimes people use that when they're spiking sound in an up tune or when they're belting in Broadway. It's called resonation chamber number 1, hard spike, or the nya position. So if you sing meow, try that. You can feel it's where the me is. But then there's a second position just behind that, so you'll find the alveolar ridge is here, and if you go just to where there's a raised part, and we're going to put the E vowel there and go so that went back to your ears as a general group, just behind. We'll go nasty and then one little bit further back. And that's resonator number 2, just in here, in resonation position number 2. Number 3 is where we're still on hard palate, it's just in front of where the hard palate meets the soft palate. So with your tongue, if you push your tongue across the roof of your mouth if you can, and you'll feel there's a point where it goes soft. Try just in front of there. We're going to go straight up the top. And you'll notice it's just one thing I have to mention, you have to do lift first. So that's always, a singer must lift everything first. So you want to be in this position before you start. So we're going to go nasty, number 1, to number 2, to number 3. Good. And then where the hard palate becomes the soft palate, you'll feel where it goes gooey. That's going to be position number 4. So we're going. Do you hear my changes? Put your hand up. So this is going to match where you're singing. So you do the same as me. Here we go. Can you hear the big transfer in the room? Good, and then position number 5, which is called soft velvet, is here, right behind the ear. So we're going to do all 5. So remember, lift first. Can you tell how much how different your voice can be, and that you can call on all of those positions at any time? Now, many of us, all of us were born. We all are born with a different position that we speak in and we sing in naturally, and we have to work that out for ourselves. So with this half now, sing through the 5 resonance chamber positions. Dale Sykes took a class and she called it spike, hard spike, medium, thank you, hard spike, soft spike, hard velvet, medium velvet, and soft velvet. Other people have taken classes and they call this the rooms of the house. And so you're going from the front of the house when you go in the front doorway to the back room. And so there are different ways of describing the same thing. So here we go. This half, we're going to sing for this half. Good. It's very hard to maintain an E vowel sound when you're going back there, isn't it? Could you try the backspace and leave it an E though, but leave the tongue rolled forward in the correct position? And with a happy face. An E looks like this. It has a facial position. No matter what's going on inside. Do you hear the changes? Just through the facelift. Your turn. So let's have a facelift first. Go to the backspace first. sound like an E anymore, does it? So we'll start at the front now, from 1 to 5. Maintain either. Now, get into E space before you sing the back space for us again, please. And your cheek, take a seat. All of the cheek there, very well. Okay, so now I'm handing over to Richard as we look at all of these different things and how that applies to music.
Very clever vision. I'm now going to, when I'm rehearsing singers in a show, I'm just going to say, no, you need to be in the parlour or in the bathroom. It'll be much easier to visualise. Interestingly, talking of belting and wicked and alphabet and so forth. These techniques, no one can belt through a whole show, even if you are playing alphabet. And these various mixes are actually the way true stars manage to simulate belting. So you would think that they were belting the whole time through, but they're actually mixing. And the number of notes that really get belted, you can count on one hand. And that's how they maintain their longevity, really. So,
when you asked me to sing that little bit in the package, you know, that it don't mean a thing. Well, when I was in the bass range, I had to go into lead range. So to think, gosh, what would a belter do and how do I achieve that out of my comfort zone?
So, as Virginia said, my background is in theatre, and this is my happy place. Actually, in the musical, not on the stage. It terrifies me, to be honest, being on stage. And the picture on your right is actually just to prove that I conducted Phantom of the Opera. And I thought you might like to see how close the chandelier gets to the head of the conductor. So, needless to say, you have to jump out of the way and conduct the last 5 bars of Act 1 from down on the floor, otherwise you won't come back for Act 2. It's a bit of a health and safety nightmare. When we were asked to talk about this and do this together, this kind of came about because of people's fascination with the way the two of us are able to work together. And so that's the Barbershop and the Broadway, although there's nothing Broadway about me because, this is New Zealand. But I have actually conducted, I edited up, it was just on 60 different titles. And because I'm now getting so old, I've repeated several of those. So I think it's about 75 seasons of various shows. So it's another way that we're very lucky in New Zealand because we don't get stuck on a long-running show for a couple of years. And in 1 year I might do 4 or 5 different seasons of shows. So that speaks to some kind of experience, I guess. I like to think of Barbershop and Broadway as genre rather than styles, okay? And I think this helps us when we're thinking about these things, because this is all about crossover. And I asked Virginia to give that little session because it's a very easy way for you to see how these two worlds connect. Okay, I didn't say collide, I said connect, all right? Each of the two genres have their own imperatives. So, as a bit of an outsider looking in, I decided if I had to come up with the one thing that was most important to achieve for barbershop devotees, it would be creating a cappella harmony. All right? So everything else is in service to that. When you are training people for work in the theatre, in musical theatre, the imperative is quite different. You'll hear them talk all the time about storytelling. Okay? Everything comes back to the storytelling. All the singing, all the acting, all the dancing, all the costuming, all the design, all those things come back to storytelling. So there are obviously crossovers there, but we're talking about the most important thing to us. What they have in common, Barbershop and Broadway, Barbershop and theatre, is that the material is borrowed. All the stylistic elements are borrowed. So there's nothing that you can say is purely this or purely that. The musics that we draw on come from other places, okay? It's actually the pop music or the rock music of the day. I was delighted last night to hear the chorus producing, opening with the number from Rent, the musical Rent. You know, it's a very modern, trendy thing to do, right? Except Rent is actually 25 years old. Just celebrated it now. So, you know, the things that we think are modern, you know, were modern one day and now they're classic, you know, and so forth. But we can see through the course of both genre that there are classics of the day that find their way into our music. So in order to produce a performance that's drawing on another style, you have to really understand that style and the elements of that style. Now, you get some people, I've seen some very gifted directors and arrangers around the tracks who just naturally feel all this stuff. And so their groups are so lucky because they get to kind of catch that from them. And some people need to come at this from an understanding point of view rather than a feeling point of view. So I'm going to go from that angle and try and unpack some things. So what are some of the things we can borrow or learn from theatre music that can find their way into barbershop? So the first one I've put up here is the influence of instrumental writing. This is really, really important to me when I'm directing groups. Because you've got your obvious things where you're trying to sound like instruments, okay? So this, of course, is the section from the beginning of Fame, right? Which we use, and all these examples are drawn from the things that we used the other night. Sorry about the quality, it's not very good. I don't know what happens to a PDF when it goes into PowerPoint, it sort of goes through a manual or something. So yeah. So even the sounds are trying to imitate instruments, okay? As well as the way those instruments are played, as well as the kind of tone that those instruments make. So these are obviously brass instruments. So we're not going to say, we suggest you sing this like a flute quintet, you know? There are some obvious choices to make in terms of the, you know, as to where you're going to put your brass sound, okay? And if you've ever listened to someone rehearsing a trumpet, it's not a pretty thing sometimes, all right? And you were talking about the nasty sound? Yeah, okay? So in its context, that's got cut, all right? Rather than just shrillness.
Good sing this, I think probably nationally you all know this pretty well, don't you?
You all know this?
Yeah, just do it.
One, two, three, yeah. Great. There are things we could do with that, but the first thing I would say to you is we haven't made it to brassland yet. All right? But there's going to be time for that. So have a seat. Just want to talk a little bit about subtext and emotion. When you, it's a big field, but when you listen to watch a movie, there is of course a soundtrack. And the purpose of that soundtrack, whether you like it or not, is to actually tell you how to feel about what's going on. All right? Sometimes it's a warning, sometimes it kind of like sums up what you're feeling. There are all sorts of functions, but you can't deny that music does tell you how to feel. Now, in theatre, it's the same thing. So I'm talking at the moment about instrumental music. But what we are talking about ultimately is transferring what gets achieved by instrumental music with voices, because that's what you do. And so we have to be aware of what what stylistic features are of this music, which makes you feel certain ways. So when I was doing some study recently, and took a year off and did a master's just for fun, and I was looking at orchestral arranging for the theatre, and one of the things that I studied was the difference between, say, an orchestration of a piece and the rehearsal piano version of a piece that people would rehearse to. So I did this little bit of geeky exercise. I don't know if you can see that very well, but down below you've got an orchestral version of the piece of music. Okay, it's a piece of Sondheim. And then up there, you've got the same piece of music as played by piano. And what is interesting, and my premise was that orchestration is about adding colours to the music, okay? And we know that colours make you feel certain ways, and so now you can see the connection and what's going on. The overtones and all the harmonics that are available to you from the orchestral instruments, you can see just run right up there, okay? And there's a much more limited palette generated by the piano, okay? And that's understandable because there's like lots of them and one of them. But the thing I was thinking about is this focus on overtone production and everything in our sound, how we are trying to achieve the same thing, okay? That you kind of have a vocal orchestra at your fingertips, okay, if we do it right. So, I won't say. Okay, melody. We think that we are all about singing melodies, okay? And if I was to do a survey, a lot of people would probably come up with the suggestion that melody is to do with pitch, all right, and changing pitches, creating melodies. But melodies, as we learn them, are so much more than that. A melody is actually a combination of pitch, rhythm, and what I call a sense of direction, okay, or phrasing. So when you learn a tune, those are the things that happen together So much of the time, we are very focused on one of these things, getting the notes right, all right? And we don't spend as much time worrying about the rhythm, for example, and all the implications there are in that, getting to that in a minute. And the sense of direction is about destination. It's about what's important. And if you think back to my attempts to work on A Million Dreams with you the other day, seems a lifetime ago, you probably sense that in my language. I was talking about arriving at a certain phrase or a certain part of the phrase or word, destination. So this is something I've learned from theatre, combining all these elements and how they contribute to style. Okay? If you pay attention to the rhythmic elements of the music, these are some of the areas you need to work in. Articulation, breath, rests, hits. We call them hits and pops. The choreographers call it hits and dings and things and things. And feel, which I've also defined as subdivision of the beat. So these are really big subjects, okay? But they are the reasons that your directors are focused on how we attack a particular note, how we finish a particular note, okay? There are like 10 ways that you can leave a note, okay? What's it? So many ways to leave your lover? Okay. I'm saying there's 5 ways to leave a note, all right? Shall we try? Okay, let's sing a chord, okay? So we'll go, okay, we're going to sing it to fa, so it'll make us feel good, okay? And did you cut off the way I cut off? No. You didn't know I was going to do that, but fair enough. One more time. Go. That's it. So there's a certain amount of impact that happens there. All right? Something totally different. Ready? So that's something else. Good. So whatever strikes you in the moment, that's how you're going to leave the note. How many people think about that when you're got your head in your music and you're trying to learn the song, right? We're only thinking about where things start, and we don't think about where they finish very often or how they finish. Okay, so there are obvious benefits from looking at that. Hits, recognizing a hit in the music. If we go back to Fame, okay, the very first note is sung by the basses, right? Okay, so is that the first note sung by the basses, or is it a statement by the basses who think that they are bass trombones?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So the attack on the beginning of that is helped a lot by saying, just make like a trombone, all right? Or if you want a beautiful line, it's like, sing like cello, which is cellos for the less enlightened of you. Or a French horn, okay, solo French horn, when you want a line. It's so much easier to do that than try and give some technical definition of how you want to phrase it. You just put yourself in the mindset of that instrument. The thing that's really, the whole breathing thing is probably where I have found the biggest challenge for me to understand the priorities in Barbershop compared to working in theatre. Because it goes back to the imperatives, right? In theatre, storytelling is the imperative. Therefore, when you have an idea, you take a breath before you say it. And that point of the point of the idea occurring to you is the moment of the breath. It's what we call inspiration of the breath. Okay? And so every time you make an utterance, you have to have the idea first. Okay? So that's because it's so important that people understand your train of thought as you deliver the lyric in theatre. Of course, in Barbershop, that hasn't got the same level of priority. There are other things at work. So I say, it depends what style you're trying to sing in, because you need to be true to that style, all right? And if you, and sometimes in Barbershop, we like to wrap up 2 or 3 ideas in one breath, you know, and that's totally fine because it's a kind of distinctive of the genre. If you go to pop music, it's completely different. Where there's breathing you don't like. Nothing has to make sense. You know, you just breathe when you need to. And if that's in the middle of a word, you know, satisfaction, it's fine. Or even worse, satisfaction. It's totally okay in that style to do that. But I just want you to see where my struggle is, that breath is always about new thoughts and changing direction in the storytelling. So that's where I'm trying to find some common ground, because I can see that that doesn't apply in all music. Well, yeah, it should. But there is sort of, I mean, it reminds me a bit of when I was younger and learning the piano, and I wasn't really very good, because I used to spend all my time trying to play Billy Joel or Elton John, and doing my piano practice wasn't always a priority. And I remember one of my exam reports came out and said something like, "Such a musical candidate, but doesn't realize that you can't play Bach like a Chopin." Which meant I actually just wanted to move the tempo around and really, do a whole lot of things that stylistically were not Bach, solid. And I was treating it like that. So I was kind of like mixing my styles. So this is a kind of developing area for me. The articulation, we saw that in the use of all those sort of things. The consonants and all those things are our articulating points, but they also have impact. So it's not just for meaning. So if you want to be particularly, aggressive, then these things are going to be used to explode the vowels out and so forth. But they are really important for maintaining rhythm and a sense of time. All right, better move on quickly. Here's an example. Classic ballad. This is the moment arrangement. essential feel of that piece of music. And in this arrangement, it's quite clever. You'll see that the basses get to set that up at the beginning, and they get just on 3 bars of behaving like a bass instrument, and then it's gone. That doesn't mean to say it's gone. They've set that up. So stylistically, and this is a theatre piece of music, interestingly enough, stylistically they've given us the dong, 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 and set it going. So we're feeling like this, and it allows us into that sense of rock ballad, and then they never do it again. But the sense of it must pervade the rest of the whole music. Okay, so there is no way to sort of start kind of moving it in and out, because it said, I'm a rock ballad, dum, 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 all the way through. Here's another one where we make a bit of a discovery on a wonderful day like today, that the overriding rhythm is actually a Latin kind of feel. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, dun, 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 dun. And we were expecting it all to go like Showtime, right? But it's not. So it's makes you want to nod your head in a completely different way. So that's what I mean when I say you've got to understand the feel of the music, okay? Because within the whole pop culture, there are just dozens and dozens of different feels. Here's one. When Virginia pops out and sings It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing, what we were trying to achieve was a whole series of numbers that follow that, which all had a swing, but they were different kinds of swing. Now, the interesting thing is this is like swing era kind of tune, right? It's never written the way it's sung. What's written is or something like that. Okay, so the way it's written is really important, and that can kind of bite you if you're not careful. This is what happened to us. So we all arrived, and Virginia had rolled out this song, I'm Still Standing, and she's saying to me, it's not sounding very good, it's not working, the chorus wants to cut it, they want to make it shorter, or not do it at all. And I'm kind of going, give me a listen to the original. So what had happened was we had a set of learning tracks which had been made based on the written music. And there had been no shuffle put into the music. A shuffle is kind of just like the rock version of swing. It's kind of what swing evolved into. You can write a whole thesis on the subdivision of the beat and what is swing if it's like whatever. Anyway, so as soon as we fixed that and we said to the chorus, no, sing it like this. I'm da 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 ba da 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 da. Right? So da 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 da, not da 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 da. Okay? No one's going to want to dance to that, are they? Okay. So one of our lovely music team members rewrote the chart. Rewrote the chart like this into dotted quavers and semi-quavers, so we'd have a better idea. It's still not right, because if you performed it like that, I'd hate it as well. Okay, it's not quite right, but it does at least give you the idea of the essence of the feel. Better move along. You know how I said it doesn't make you want to dance? Okay. Popular music has always been associated with dance of the era. Okay? It's always important to remember that, because that's what we're performing, and we need to capture that feeling that made people want to dance. in a lot of our music. Okay, in theatre, elements of dance music come up all the time in songs, and it's because it gives you a sense of time and place. It's the quickest and easiest way to transport you to another culture or to another location or to another era. It's to give you a cue of dance at that time. So remember that you're doing that as well, okay? The theatre performer is what we call a triple threat. And in fact, I think any performer has to be like a triple threat. We know that we have to sing. We know a lot about that, all right? We know we have to move, and in some cases dance. We've seen a lot of that over the weekend as well, okay? It's also about acting. And when you're training people to be professionals in the acting sphere, it's actually quite different than what you think it is when you're looking from the outside in. Okay, I want to just play you, there's one more. Being in your body. We talk about that when you're moving, obviously. We talk about it when we're singing all the time about being in your body, okay? But also when you are transmitting this material, you're acting, you are needing to be in your body. Not pretending you're in someone else's body, but you actually have to own it. I'm going to play a very quick example, my only example. A friend of mine who is a Broadway artist, Liz Callaway, who is my go-to person for how to deal with a lyric. And you must look her up if you haven't heard of her before. She's the voice of Anastasia on the movie from our childhood. She played Grisabella in Cats on Broadway and has had a very long career, and is also one of the singers on the theme tune to The Nanny. It's written by her sister, and the two of them sing it together. Anyway, she came to New Zealand, long story short, to record some music for me, which I had orchestrated. And we did I asked her to sing the number Beautiful City from Godspell by Stephen Schwartz. And it was because of what happened in Christchurch. I thought it would be great if she could sing this song. So I did this arrangement for her and an orchestration. She recorded it, but she also took it back with her and released it on Spotify. And she has a series where she sings in her car. She does rehearsing in her car. And she literally practices while she's driving. And so she films this. So she filmed this particular song while she was driving around New York. And I'm going to play this because it's such a poignant example of putting something in its time and place, okay? And obviously an object lesson in a lyric. So remember, she is driving and some unexpected things happen.
Trust is all but shattered when your faith is all but killed. You can give up bitter and battered, or you can slowly start to build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, but finally a city of men. A city of men. a city of men. Wow.
It was even in the right key. The timing of it was so amazing. That's my favourite version, of all the studio time we did. That's my favourite version of this song. This is what I've learned from music theatre performers that I think will help the next generation. Okay, to elevate the lyric. How do you learn a lyric? Here's my method. Well, it's actually Liz's method. Don't learn your lyric by singing the tune, by singing the song. Do it as a separate event, because the way the music is packaged, the way the melody is, will dictate what you should think about what you're singing. Whereas you want time to actually stop and consider what you're singing. And it's amazing how little we do that. Know what your intention is when you sing any lyric. Okay, this is a really important thing for me, and I spend a lot of time on this, and I think I'm starting to see dividends now with our chorus. This is how we do it. What is my task at this very moment? Now you can either say that's for a whole song, or you can say it for a phrase. But get people in groups, get them to stop and think about it. What do I need to do right now? It's not about what do I need to pretend I'm doing, what do I need to channel, who do I need to be, and what's my character, and it's none of that. It's you, this person here, in the room right now, while I'm singing this, what is my job to do? Am I to inspire people? Am I to motivate them? Am I to tell them off? Am I to... There are lots of things that you could be doing. And this is why we do it. When we're performing, we don't want to be pretending. People can see fake a mile away. When you plaster on a smile, but this thing you're singing is not even happy, all right? You can do it so easily, but there's an immediate disconnect, right? So it's because we're pretending, okay? So find yourself in the moment for what you're singing and personalize the lyrics. What does this mean to me now? It's not I'm pretending to be Alphaba and I'm singing this, or I'm pretending to be somebody else, and if I was then, what would I do? It's not. It's you now. What does this mean to be singing this song now? Emotions are real, not put on. Okay, that's the biggest battle that I have with performers, is say, don't make up emotions, don't glean them from somewhere else, find them for yourself. Okay? Here's an example of what the work we did just a couple of months ago for our medley. And it was quite interesting because we'd sung all these songs before, but we were looking at them in the context of the medley while we were doing them all now. And so we wrote all these verbs up to when we sing that excerpt from Fame, it's to announce something. Our job is to engage the audience, to excite them at that point. Okay? So when we come up with problems with the song, when it's not sounding right even, it's very easy to say, remember, our job here is to defy or to assert. So as soon as you start using words like that, what happens to your sound? You actually go shortcut straight to the emotional kind of connection that you have with your lyric. You don't have to stop and say, now I would like your onset to be clearer and I would like the vowels to be longer. And you just don't. You say, you are there to assert, to defy, to excite, to engage, okay? To include people. So some wonderful things have come out of this, and you can just see, I hope you can read those. There are some interesting ones, like trickle, trickle, the job was to frivol. Because we wanted to be frivolous, but we had to convert it to a verb. So it's now a verb, okay? And the one that says flirt was not my idea. I've run out of time. But I just want to give you a little insight in the way this poor music director of theatre has coped moving into the world of Barbershop and thinking, how can I help? What is that works for me in that world? What are the understandings that I have? What are the priorities for me that I can share with my friends in the barbershop community that will help them connect in their performances better? And that's why I think there is a path from barbershop, from Broadway to barbershop or vice versa. And working with this lovely lady here, who has the most crazy ideas, but the fact that she's prepared to think out of the box and try new things is testament to how much fun we have together. This is one of our recent undertakings.
Place
thought we would do is Virg is going to direct this, and she's going to do this thing here. All right? And we're going to move the sound around. Okay? I'm going to ask you for an intention. Okay? So while I'm singing this song, my job is to what? Can I have some suggestions, please?
Inspire.
Inspire? Good. Let's have 2, so that I can throw those into the mix.
Defy.
Okay. I'm having a million dreams, not 10, not 100, not 1,000, a million. Okay. We're going to sing it in a defiant way. Okay. Good. And one more.
Engage.
To engage. Okay. So we'll stand here and fire you suggestions, and you're going to change at will. All right? Should we stand? Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
was completely silly. But it kept you on your toes, didn't it? Thank you.